I set out to play The Last of Us Part 2 for the first time about 2 weeks ago. I had watched the TV show before I played the first game, and still managed to remain unspoiled in the 2-year gap between seasons, and going back to the second game's release nearly 5 years ago. I did know that there were mixed reactions at that time to some of what happens, but otherwise went in cold. One of the reasons I'm bringing this up is that I think the first season of the TV show did a better job of preparing me for the big moment than I would have been if I just played the game. I came out of that thinking this was Ellie's story, not Joel and Ellie's. Even though their bond and the relationship they slowly put together were at the center of things, something made me feel like it wouldn't last. Which I should probably clarify, something other than Joel's lie at the end of the first season. And I think the last 2 episodes did a terrific job of bringing that into focus. Joel shut himself off after he lost his daughter Sarah. This is why he was how he was after the time skip in the first season, and why he was reluctant to care about Ellie when they set out on the road. She was cargo right up until she wasn't, because caring about someone, or even a thing or a place in this world, means you have something to lose. That's why it made sense for him to do what he does to the Fireflies at the end of the first season. And even if you don't condone it, you know that if you were in his shoes, you'd probably do the same. The first episode in the second season contrasted all the harshness they experienced on their journey to Salt Lake with Jackson's relative tranquility. Sure, there are issues because it's full of people, but they have it pretty good by every metric that matters in a post-cordyceps hellscape. Something is bubbling up under the surface in Ellie and Joel's relationship, something we presume is about her no longer believing his story about what happened at St. Mary's Hospital, but otherwise, we see them becoming a part of a community. Things are moving forward between Ellie and Dina. Joel's background as a contractor makes him useful, and this is important because as she's growing up and trying to figure out who she is and how to protect herself, he's trying to figure out who he'd be if he's not actively doing that. Through Ellie, Joel was able to break out of the self-imposed prison he lived in after Sarah's death. I don't think you could say the pain was gone, but he was on the way to living as normal a life as you'd expect under the circumstances. It's almost as if all of this is starting to pile up as things you could file into the something to lose folder. Jackson is the prime example. Did season 1 make you think this would change into a show about the issues that arise when you try to build a new community? Maybe. But Joel finally finding something to love rather than just something to fight for, only to be faced with having to make that fucked up decision in short order, left me suspicious of things that hinted at happy endings. The peace they found in Jackson didn't feel like it could last either. And in line with the idea Ellie threw out there last week, the show did not pull its punches. It's funny too because since it doesn't happen there, the game didn't prepare me for that. And to get back to what I was saying at the beginning, 2 weeks ago I experienced Joel's death for the first time. Yes, I went into the game thinking something catastrophic and potentially controversial would happen, but having that happen and having it happen that early was still a complete shock. It was brutal, and beyond all the bargaining and kind of thinking, I wonder how he'll get out of this one right up until the final moment, the one big difference about playing through it rather than just watching it is that things just keep going. There's not a lot of time to appreciate the placement, and it almost feels like the reason it happened so early is shock value. This doesn't turn out to be the case, but it doesn't dawn on you until later. What is apparent in the moment is that things will never be the same. The relationship they build up as they slowly cross the country, as Joel came to see his cargo as a daughter he defended any cost, their relationship has come to an end, just as Abby's relationship with her father ended when Joel burst into the operating room at the end of the last season. That's where this episode opens. In a dream, Abby remembers walking into the room where her father was murdered when she was 19. Remember, we heard last time that Ellie is 19 right now. She tells herself not to do it, that his brains are on the floor, and she knows what seeing those will do to her. But she goes anyway before we see her wake up outside of Jackson. This scene tells us a couple of things. First, her obsession with making Joel pay for what happened has invaded her dreams. This is what she thinks thinks about. Second, Jackson is highly fortified, and even though they made a pact not to hurt anyone other than Joel, that might be easier said than done. Third, Abby takes the lead. You can see the others defer to her, and while they are with her in wanting justice for what happened, they're also a little more cautious because they know she won't stop. So after she goes out to scout, they talk about their real plan, trying to convince her to go back and give up on revenge. No time has passed between episodes, and Jesse brings up the dance when he wakes Ellie up for their patrol. He pretends to be outraged when he finds out she kissed Dina. Remember, she is his ex, even though he already knew, and then brings up the scuffle between Joel and Seth. Things in town are on high alert, and he explains the threat that we'll see play out later, while Ellie is somewhat dismissive. Jesse calls it certainty masquerading as knowledge to show he knows her pretty well, and after he calls her out about spooking everyone with a ghost story about the world's smartest infected, she's had enough. A hangover might have partially influenced it, but when she blows up, it's more about her working through what's happening between her and Joel. She acknowledges that things are complicated and look pretty bad from the outside, and that it has been bad, but she's still her, and he's still Joel, and nothing's ever going to change that. While this is definitely foreshadowing what's to come, it stands out that she starts by saying they're better now, and then doesn't respond when Jesse asks if they hashed it out. Because the last thing we saw was her unloading on Joel at the dance, then walking past him sitting on the porch with the guitar without saying anything and heading straight into the garage. It seems like we're supposed to question if something changed, but there isn't a lot of time that's unaccounted for. Either way, she appears to have started to come around compared to where she was the day before. We'll have to find out if that is because there was another conversation we didn't see. The Daddy-Daughter Day patrol can't happen because Joel has already gone out with Dina. He wanted to go out with Ellie, but he let her sleep. And if this wasn't enough bad news, Jesse tells her they have to stop by the restaurant, which turns out to be for an apology from Seth that Maria set up. We find out it's really cold outside, and we see a storm coming when Ellie and Jesse head out. It's so cold that Abby is about to give up on her scouting mission and head inside until she hears a horse in the distance. Through binoculars, she spots two riders, and since we know Joel and Dina left an hour earlier, we can guess it's likely them, even though we can't tell for sure. Contrary to Jesse's assumption that the storm would stay in the mountains, Tommy has to recall the patrols when it starts rolling in. There isn't enough time to return before it hits, so Ellie and Jesse take shelter in a 7-Eleven full of weed. This turns out to be where Gail's husband Eugene used to cultivate his product, which she told Joel about before their therapy session, and he turns out to be an ex-Firefly and a Vietnam vet. When Ellie finds his pendant, it gives her pause for obvious reasons. But when she asks about it, Jesse makes it sound like Eugene quit a few years before Salt Lake happened. The Firefly pendants are similar to dog tags that members wear and are a collection item you pick up in the first game. Eugene's pendant appears in part 2, although the location of his pot farm and the circumstances are slightly different. You'll also remember that one of the mysteries about Abby's introduction in the first episode was whose pendant she placed on the unmarked grave. Now we know it's her father's. While we still don't know the details, Jesse directly mentions how sad it was that Joel had to put Eugene down. As he says he couldn't be saved, you see the wheels turning inside Ellie's head. Having this come up in 2 episodes in a row tells me that we'll learn more about it, but considering how this episode ends, it's hard to figure out how that fits in going forward, considering the only person who knew what happened is no longer with us. In her pursuit of the patrol, Abby's determination leads to an attempt at a shortcut that goes incredibly wrong. She loses her grip, slides down a steep slope, and ends up in the middle of what appears to be a bunch of dead infected. This is what Jesse was talking about earlier. Even though Jesse primed us for what happens here when he was briefing Ellie on the developing situation, it's one of those things that's hard to imagine until you see it, and then it's hard to describe. The infected just start coming out of the ground all around her, like, I don't know, flooding out over the snow. However you decide to describe it, it's terrifying, and Abby has to run for her life. She makes it over a wall in the nick of time to get a short breather. That's followed by one of the best scenes that's pulled straight from the game when she takes a turn to squeeze through a tight space behind a fence. The infected mob crashes against that, and she has to crawl underneath while their weight bears down on her. She makes it out as one of the runners gets through, and it comes after her. When she tries to run, it grabs her, but before it can bite her, someone we can't see shoots it. And of course, this turns out to be Joel wielding a trusty revolver. When he gets her inside, she finds out his name whenever she hears Dina call out for him, and she finds out that the target of her rage just saved her life. There are some key differences in how things play out in the show compared to the game, and don't worry, I won't go into all of them since I didn't get the episode in advance and don't have a lot of time to check everything side by side, but also because I think both versions are effective in how you experience them. But the one change I do think is an improvement is how she figures out who he is. In the game, he's with Tommy rather than Dina, and they just give up their names in the heat of everything that's happening, which kind of feels like a mistake. In both instances, the important thing is that he saw someone in trouble and his instinct was to help. This escalates into a no good deed goes unpunished situation, but realizing that Joel and Dina are stuck and the character we know has sworn to kill him is giving him an out that he can't really turn down is only the first domino to fall. While she's playing with the gas mask bong and stuffing her backpack with weed, Ellie and Jesse find out from the radio operator that Joel and Dina still haven't checked in. They split up to try to mount a rescue. At the same time, those mycelium tendrils in the pipes we saw in the last episode are exposed. Joel and Dina's rush to the lodge starts out harrowing, as the entire horde is in hot pursuit and there are more infected joining, but it eventually changes course as the underground network tips them off to all the humans nearby in Jackson. As Tommy's about to learn about this, the lookout in the tower sounds the alarm. We see that their preparations are impressive, but we can't be sure if they would have imagined the exact scenario that's unfolding. We do know that they'll go down fighting, and while we don't know many of the people who live there, we do know what this place represents for Joel and Ellie. It doesn't hurt that it's an amazing 13 or so minutes of television, but I think focusing on Tommy and Maria pushes it over the top. As impressive as the preparations were, and as exciting as the execution was to watch, as mentioned, it's hard to tell if they could even imagine how the situation would play out. I'm not even sure it's a great idea when you're dealing with mindless infected who will keep pushing forward no matter what, to catch them on fire when you live in a wooden fort, but I do know I liked watching it play out. It was edge of your seat the whole way. When I saw them grabbing the flamethrowers, I figured another bloater situation was coming, because you might remember that bullets don't do much to them from the scene outside of Kansas City in season 1. In case you've forgotten, bloaters are essentially the final form of the infected. It takes one a few years to develop, and in that time they become incredibly strong, as you see when this one serves as the catalyst for the breach, and they're hard to kill because they grow a thick layer of fungus that basically functions as a suit of armor. The bloater breaking through the gate ends up being the beginning of the end, but the battle is insane throughout with tons of casualties on both sides. As the action reaches its climax, we follow Tommy as he tries to lure the bloater away from the building where Maria is taking repeated shots at it. His plan works, but he also finds himself trapped in an area where he can't get up on the roof and has to rely on the flamethrower, which runs out of fuel. The damage turns out to be enough to drop it, but not before a long beat where it looks like Tommy's finished. That and the thrilling sequence where Maria releases the hounds turn the tide, but the losses are substantial enough to make it feel like things will never be the same in Jackson. I think this is summed up best at the very end when we see one of the residents show someone a bite mark on their arm and hand them their gun, and without much hesitation they put him down. While what I just described would generally be the main event in most TV episodes, it definitely is not in this one. As they make their way to the lodge, Joel is torn for a moment after seeing the destruction outside the gates of Jackson. It's subtle, but it makes you wonder if the Joel we met in the Boston QZ in the first episode of the series would even consider turning away when his best chance of survival is right in front of him at the lodge. Abby thinks fast and promises they have blankets and ammo and that her friends will help in the fight. Because Dina is starting to get frostbite by the time they get there anyway, they probably wouldn't have made it, but it still feels like a huge mistake when Abby reveals to the rest of her group that the Joel they've been hunting is standing right in front of them. From there, things escalate in a hurry when they announce they'll just put Dina to sleep for a while. Given that this is because they don't want to hurt her, Joel realizes that they do want to hurt him. He tries to bargain briefly as Abby leads him to the realization that they're fireflies. Ex-fireflies, actually, because haven't you heard there are no more fireflies? She runs down the checklist for the description they had at the beginning of the last episode and even manages to lighten the mood somewhat when she congratulates him on being handsome. Then she agrees to let Dina live if he comes clean about what he did. This goes directly against their stated plan of not hurting anyone but Joel, and Mel tries to say something about it before Abby shuts her down. While there won't be any question about how serious the latter is for anyone watching, this is something a disarmed Joel is processing as he's trying to figure out how grave his situation is. You see him take that into consideration as she asks where he last saw the fireflies, and he admits to being in Salt Lake after looking at an unconscious Dina on the floor. He takes one last look at a burning Jackson before pleading that he did save Abby's life, and she shoots him in the leg with a shotgun. All of this is dire, but when she tells Mel to put a tourniquet on his leg so he won't bleed out too quickly, it starts to set in that she's going to keep her promise to kill him slowly. As she sets out to do that, she explains that the doctor he shot was her father. This means that, from what we know, he was humanity's last chance of finding a cure. Abby doesn't seem to prioritize that. She's pissed she lost her father, and in the last 5 years while she's been part of a militia in Seattle, she picked up a code from her commander. They don't kill people who can't defend themselves, but in Joel's case, she's willing to make an exception. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There are just some things that everyone agrees are just fucking wrong. It's pretty apparent that she probably went over what she'd say to him over and over again if this low percentage event ever took place. Joel doesn't say a word as he takes it all in, and at a point she looks over to notice a set of clubs and a golf bag across the room. As she walks over to that, she starts up again saying that she had been waiting so long for this, and that's as much as Joel can endure. He tells her to shut the fuck up and get it over with already as she selects a 9-iron. After grabbing that, she's quick to establish that she's the one in charge in this situation and tells him he doesn't get to rush it before she starts hitting the open wound on his leg. This seems like precisely the kind of thing that everyone could agree is just fucking wrong. I mean, I guess it's up to you to decide what justice looks like, but the looks on the faces of her companions says they didn't realize they were signing up for something like this. To its credit, the show doesn't linger on the violence for its sheer brutality. It doesn't shy away from informing us of what's taking place, but it cuts away rather than showing us every blow that contributes to how Joel looks when Ellie finally arrives. And you can see by then that the others have had about as much as they can take and urge Abby to finish the job. When Ellie creeps her way in, there's a brief moment where you think she might have shown up right in time to save him. I mean, playing it, you definitely think that because, like I said, it's so early in the game that you just can't imagine it's really going down like that. But that's dashed away when they get the jump on her. She comes in shooting and manages to slash one of them as they drop her to the floor, but it ends with her being pinned down, forced to watch as Abby uses what's left of the golf club to bring an end to Joel. The performances are fantastic across the board, with Pedro Pascal saying so much with his face while not saying anything with his voice, and Kaitlyn Dever making a big first impression, but Bella Ramsey steals the show. When she begs Joel to get up, and you see that he tries even though he can't move, it's deeply sad, but also as fitting as a send-off can be for the character. When Ellie screams that she'll kill them all, you believe her. While everyone there probably believes her too, but they stick to their plan to only deliver justice to Joel for what he did to their people. And you realize she's in the same place Abby was when she discovered her father's body. Just as you wanted Joel to save Ellie in the first season, you now want to see her get justice for her loss, but are forced to consider the cost after seeing how this played out. Having done what they came to do, the ex-Fireflies pack up and leave. As Ellie crawls across the floor in the most powerful scene in the show to this point, there really is no question. Things have changed and they'll never be the same. Ellie settles in next to Joel, almost on top of him, and the last shot of them together is from overhead. A song that's familiar to people who played the game starts as they show Abby's group leaving and the aftermath of the battle in Jackson. It's a cover of Through the Valley performed by Ashley Johnson, the voice actor of Ellie in the games who played her mother in the flashback scene of her giving birth in season 1. The lyrics are fitting for what happens, and while the song plays over the end credits of the second part of the game, it was also in one of its first teasers where you see Ellie playing the song and then Joel walks into the room and she tells him she'll kill every last one of them. Having something to lose can lead to heartache, but what else are we here for? Is Ellie getting justice what we really want to see for her? And if it is, how is it different from what Abby just did? While this seems fast and Joel will be missed, he's not the kind of character you could replace. The end of their relationship and his demise is also this new story's beginning. If things won't ever be the same, the question is, what will they be next? And I think that's a great place to leave things. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.